So I'd love for you to go back when you first decided to elevate everyone's salary to 70,000, which gained you national fame and accolades. And you took a pay cut personally in order to make this $70,000 salary floor possible.
Yeah, well, I had been indoctrinated in all the things that you're saying that we've both been talking about in terms of kind of the system and how other companies think about things, the supremacy of shareholders, all those things. But it was going against what I was actually seeing with my own eyes. And so in 2011, I was really inspired by an employee who was telling me she wasn't making enough and she had to take a second job at McDonald's to afford to be able to work at my company.
Yikes.
And I'm like, you're one of our best employees. Like, if you can't afford to live your life, what does that say about me? And so in 2011, at the end of the year, we set a goal to average 15% raises in 2012. And then that we thought would decrease the profit. We were looking to rebalance the pie and make it more fair because that's what we thought would happen based on everything that's said out there. But our profit actually went up. So we decided, well, we'll do it one more time only in 2013. And we did it again. We exceeded the goal. Our profit went up. So that was happening every year. And we thought this is the way to run a business. And in 2015, we did a survey across our whole company. And people were generally pretty pleased with how we were structured. But I went on a hike with my friend Valerie, who was in the Army for 11 years. And she's such a hard worker and such an amazing person. And she was explaining to me how a $200 rent increase was throwing her entire life upside down. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. You're one of the best people I know. Like, how is this possible that you're not being compensated fairly? And then I learned something very inconvenient, which was a third of my employees were making less than what Valerie was making at that time. She was making about $40K, and our lowest employees were like 30 or 35. And it was just heartbreaking for me. And I'd seen like the Daniel Kahneman, Angus Deaton study about how wellness increases with income until it doesn't. And I'd read all these things, but ironically, and I'm not proud of this, it took almost like emotional personal experience where this person that I genuinely love and care about and respect so much was not being taken care of by our economy, where I realized I had built a company where I can make decisions, and yet I was just following what everyone else was doing, what was hurting her, rather than doing what I think any 5-year-old would know would be the right thing in that situation.
Well, way to channel your inner 5-year-old, Dan, because you then became a national hero in some circles, my circles, when you said, you know what, we're going to make sure that everyone who works for this company gets paid $70,000 minimum, which happens to track with about the income level where money no longer affects happiness because you would now have enough to meet your everyday needs.
Yeah, and I would also say that, I appreciate you saying that. I think ideally we would have a world where I don't get so much credit for doing this. And I think I get way too much credit. And it was shocking to me, somebody that grew up in Idaho and getting on the local Idaho news would be like being a celebrity in my world, let alone the New York Times and all these other places, talking to you. And it caused me to reflect and be like, why is this happening? And I don't think it's happening because I'm such a great person. I think it's just more of
because everyone else is so fucking shitty.
It's an indictment on the system. It is funny, but it's true. It's an indictment on the system that somebody that just does something very logical, says, hey, all of us built this together. Shouldn't all of us at least be able enough to live like a normal life? That is so radical and noteworthy is really shocking to me. And I think we should be somewhat ashamed as a society that that's where we're at right now.
There are certain organizations where I completely think they could have done what you've done a while ago. So some of these organizations that are now incredibly wealthy and valuable, and oftentimes the leader ends up hoovering up the lion's share of that value in these situations. I can relate to a lot of your story, Dan, in that, but this is one thing I will suggest, is that your business, it was in a situation where if you invested more in your people, then it spurred more growth, better morale, better retention, more creativity. I ran an organization that was in a similar boat where if you're a growth company and you invest in your people, then you end up growing more. It's like this magical relationship. And I'm proud to say that, I was following some of your playbook during that time where I would pay people more. Like there was always like a level where you kind of sensed, because you're the CEO of a small business, like you kind of get it. It's like, I know I can get you for this much, but I'm going to pay you a little more than that because I think you're going to be just happier, like better, more productive, less stressed out, more content. Like I also was always like, whatever I think I can get them for, like I'm going to like go a little bit above that.
And it's good for us, right? If we're like engaging with them and they're a little happier, a little less stressed out, then we're happier and less stressed out.
That's true. I'm wired the same way you are, which is like, I want the people around me to be happy. Yeah. I want them not to be stressed out about a $200 rent increase. Like, I think that would just be better for us all. And in my case too, I did some things where, and this is one of the joys of being a small business owner, where I was like, you know what? Like, we should all go to the beach. I'm going to rent a house. But it's got to be a big house to accommodate everybody. And then be like, everyone, a bus. Us to the beach. Or I want to take everyone skiing or whatever the heck it was. Those were the days. I mean, I still miss them. Like, my now wife and I were dating during this time, and she also was like, oh, I miss those days because you're like the head of this, and you're positive, you want to look out for people. I will say I'm sympathetic to folks who run certain types of operations in other industries where frankly like that relationship might not apply, where if like you invest more in your people, like maybe you're in like a no growth environment and you're like kind of managing. Now that's I think most businesses are in situations where they would benefit from treating people better, higher morale, like higher contentment, lower turnover. Like the vast majority of businesses, I believe, fall in this camp. And I'm happy to say that I think that you and I had similar kinds of experiences as the heads of small companies.
I'll say, though, in our industry, if you look at our competitors, they have done massive numbers of layoffs. They've increased the fees that they charge to small businesses in opaque ways that those businesses can't understand or can't see right away, so they can't be held accountable very quickly. And then there are some companies that are doing a lot of great innovation, but those companies are telling their shareholders that they're going to turn around and flip the switch at some point and start to charge those customers a lot more, or like start to figure out how to control costs in the ways that you're describing. And I feel like I did get kind of something wrong in terms of my expectations over the past 6 years. And that is, I thought, with all the hubbub and how, kind of how much attention we were getting, if we came out and proved that this could work, that we would have a lot of people following suit. And we have had, dozens of companies follow suit, and wow, maybe some others in big ways. But like generally the problem's gotten worse. And just if I can get up on my soapbox for 2 minutes and highlight some of the success we've had. I mean, we've tripled as a company in the past 5.5 years. We have 10x the number of babies being born at the company per year. Like we've had 50 or 60 babies born.
I love how you have that as a measurement. It's like people are feeling reproductive.
We have 10x the number of first-time homeowners. 70% of the people at the company have gotten out of debt. 30% say they've gotten completely out of debt, but 70% have paid down debt. And people have between doubled and tripled their savings for retirement. And I think there's real implications here for UBI, because the raise that they got is about the same raise that $1,000 times 2 adults in a home would get. And most of the people that work at Gravity, they are 2 adult homes. So I think there's implications there. So I thought, we prove all of that and you would see this general macroeconomic trend of people thinking in this direction. But I think we've actually proven the opposite. And I think just the fact that the story's still big, I think we've proven that people aren't going to do it voluntarily more than anything else, because we've shown it can work. We've shown we're like, we're still here. Like I'm not poor. Like I'm out surfing and playing music, and
you seem very happy and healthy, Dan.
Yeah, have a great life, and yet still nobody's doing it. And so it's really actually emboldened my perspective on what you're doing, Because
Yes!
I've realized I'm not the answer. I mean, maybe I'm the answer in that I can be a part of the story and encouraging people and sharing what I've learned, sharing what I know. But we need to all come together behind these types of systemic solutions, and we can't keep glorifying individual one-offs like me.
Freaking, man, I want to give you a hug.
I would love a Yang hug right now. This guy gives the best hugs for everybody else.
Wow, that's so kind of you.
You do.
Because what you just said is so important, where there was like a period, and I spent 7 years or so trying to make something positive happen with Venture for America and entrepreneurship, and I thought something similar was like, if I could just show people that helping these small businesses grow is just a better path than heading to the billion-dollar bank or the consulting company or whatever the heck, then we could really start to fix things. And incredibly proud of everything that Venture for America continues to do. But I started realizing that the black hole's gravity field at this point is way, way too strong, and that the software of our economy that so many people have internalized, that we're all economic inputs, and that if you're a company, you have to try and like get it down to the very last penny, like what you can get away with, and that as soon as you can and as soon as you can throw someone overboard, you definitely should throw them overboard. Like all of these things are so deeply entrenched, not just in the operations of these companies, but in our society and people's minds, that I realized that we actually need to rewrite the rules of the economy, both from the ground up and the top down simultaneously. But the top down component required control of the government. And then I was like, well, how do you get control of the government? And then it's like, run for president and win and have the movement, the revolution. It's like, and that most people watching this know would have been a highly irrational ambition circa 2018 when, Andrew Yang was an anonymous entrepreneur. But it's born of the same kind of arc that you went through, Dan, because you think, okay, if I can demonstrate this works, then everyone will be like, well, it works. Let's all treat our people better. Mm-hmm. And then when you're like, people really won't treat like their employees better unless they get dragged to it kicking and screaming. And the only way to drag them to it kicking and screaming would be to actually get a hold of government and change some rules. Thank you for listening in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you did, please do subscribe to Yang Speaks and click on notifications so we can let you know every time we have a new episode.